I keep from sin? Since love is Lord of the tender, how can I keep from sin?
Good afternoon, and welcome to this sacred time and place as we gather to remember Janer Olds Eldridge. We welcome family and friends who came from far and wide to celebrate her life. We come together today to weave a web of memory and of music, recalling a woman who profoundly touched the lives of people around her. In celebrating her life, we bear witness to that which is stronger than even death, which is the abiding power of love. The death of a loved one reminds us that we came into this life in mystery, and we go away the same. Let us enter together into this time of mystery, drawing strength and hope from remembering Janer's wonderful life, and by surrounding ourselves with the music that sustained and lifted her and was one of the gifts that she brought to this world. Our chalice lighter today is Ava Eldridge. The Flaming Chalice is a symbol of Unitarian Universalism, Janer's chosen faith. It represents the cup of community freely offered. In our time of loss, we light a flame of sharing, the flame of ongoing life. In this time, when we search for understanding and serenity in the face of loss, we light this sign of our quest for truth, meaning, and community. Thank you, Ava. And now I invite all of us to rise in body or spirit, and we will sing a song she loved and that we have loved to sing all together in this space. Spirit of Life in both Spanish and English. The words are in your order of service, and they will be on the screen. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in our heart the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí. al corazón, póntale tu compasión, sopla al volar, sube la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arraigame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. You may be seated. Thank you. You're invited to come every Sunday and sing in that fashion. Those of us who have spent time with Janer Eldridge have had the delight of experiencing the wisdom of someone born in 1919 during the second year of the Spanish flu pandemic. See an interesting connection here with her death? The last American combat units finally left France in September 1919, when Janer was 3 months old, but it took another 6 months before all American soldiers on the Western Front returned home. During the year of Janer's birth, Theodore Roosevelt died, and an act of the United States Congress established most of the Grand Canyon as a United States national park. The city of Chicago was in the throes of prohibition and alive with speakeasies and bootlegging. The summer she was born was called the American Red Summer and consisted of many terrorist attacks on Black communities and white oppression in over 36 cities and counties in this country. The most damage was done in rural areas, but there were such attacks in Chicago. In May of that year, Janer was born into privilege in a suburb of Chicago, and she carried those marks, her beautiful teapots and love of tea, and the warmth and hospitality of sharing a cup of tea with friends and family. Her birth followed that of her brother, Ben. Her father was a well-placed lawyer, head of the local bar association, and her mother worked inside, but not outside the home. When Janer was 3, however, tragedy struck with the sudden death of her father from pneumonia. Even with what must have been reduced circumstances, the family was able to stay in the same house in Winnetka on Green Bay Road that parallels the railroad tracks. It was here that they went through the Great Depression. The house was on a triangular square next to a Christian Science church that was right next to the tracks. When Peter visited his grandmother, he loved to go to a nearby bridge and watch the trains pass underneath. Peter remembers his grandmother living in that 2-story house with an elevated porch, as formal and distant, with silver blue hair. She was a strict mother to Janer and Ben. Janer remembered sitting on the front steps and not being part of the memorial service for her father. Peter said that Graham's friends came to play bridge wearing white gloves that they would take off for the game of bridge. Janer was taught these upper middle class manners, but as Peter said, She didn't turn out that way. When it came time for further education, Janer attended Bradford Junior College and received her Associate Arts degree there. By this time, she was impassioned with music, and she had a strong desire to study music at Yale. But for some reason that we don't know now, but if a friend does know that, you can let Peter know after the service, that didn't happen. A woman born in 1919 in the middle class had the expectation that she would get married, not have a career. And Janer began studying voice at the music department at Northwestern. And this is where, in the same moment, Frank Eldridge was studying organ. Peter assumes that they met through their love of music. With the outbreak of World War II, which shook up the world of work, Janer worked as a timekeeper for Lockheed. And during the war, Frank was an assistant in the Army, which took him west. With the end of the war, they moved to Ithaca, New York, and the Ithaca Unitarian Society needed an organist. Although both Janer and Frank Eldridge Jr. had been Methodists, Unitarianism was a great fit for them. Frank played the organ there until he died in 1993. In Ithaca, Janer became involved with the League of Women Voters, and she was president. She took on a few private voice students. She was elected to the local public school board, and she distinguished herself by leading the effort to get a bad superintendent fired. She was, as you all know, a strong woman. And always amongst the details of her life was the flow of music. To Janer, as in this service that celebrates her life, music was not an extra. It was part of the very fabric of each day, listening, singing, playing, or leading others in song. I began with the year into which Janer was born because she was a woman of her time. If she had been born 40 years later, her life would probably have been quite different. She may have been able to have an open relationship with a woman and even have children without the societal restrictions of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. This is the hard part of the story, but an important part. During Peter's late teens, she began to have relationships with women that became central to her life. As you might imagine, this was difficult for her family, and the options for women to have relationships with other women during this era were limited. Through the years, Peter has struggled to find compassion for this situation, which at the time caused suffering in the Eldridge family. Hearing of this grief, I could only feel grateful that the world has transformed and that it is possible now, still difficult for many, but possible to have same-sex relationships openly without societal retribution. And I can only imagine the sense of liberation and guilt that Janer felt during the time she lived in both worlds, especially between the years 1964 and 1971, when she left her family and country to live in Europe and write a book. The research for this book gave her the opportunity to teach singing and interview some of the premier opera singers of the day. This was a very difficult time for her family. There were no words to articulate what was happening around them. And soon before Janer died, she spoke of this with Peter for the first time. I'm sure that this lightened her for her journey to what she jokingly referred to as the pearly gates. And after returning from Europe, she tried to live with her mother with the silver blue hair, but that did not work. And sensitive to the damage that she had caused in Peter's life, when she thought of moving to Northern California, she called Peter and she asked if she would be too close to him at his home in Los Angeles if she moved to the Bay Area. And at a certain point, Janer and Peter agreed that it made sense for her to move to Los Angeles. And not long after that, in 1975, the first grandchild was born. She attended the home birth and eventually shared a duplex in Sylmar with Peter and his wife and children. A family came together again. She was a close grandmother to her three grandsons, Locke, Jaron, and Matthew, who will have marvelous and possibly surprising stories to tell us today. And during that time living together, she became the choir director for the First Unitarian Church of Los Angeles, and she taught private voice students. But then came the Northridge earthquake in 1994, close to their home. And that convinced her to find a new place to live. And we are blessed that she found this place. Maybe she's calling. And Janer took on Prescott with all of her energy. Many here today are aware of this chapter of her life, a long one that she shared with the people of Prescott. She was soon drawn into the world of music, or perhaps, I wonder, the music she brought with her in her soul was like a magnet that attracted music and musicians to her. Within a short time, she became a prominent figure in the local music community. She was directing the UCC choir, and she became involved with the Unitarian Universalist congregation as a singer and occasional director, and she served on the board of Chaparral Music Fest with the Flurries. But she is perhaps best known for her role for what you see behind me, her role in founding the respected women's choir, Women's Song, a legacy that we are enjoying in this service. The centrality of music in her life bids us prioritize what we love and not push what we love into the margins. Janer would have none of that. And I wonder, because we want to learn this lesson from her life, I wonder what you love, but have a hard time making a priority. She would want you to try to do that. As many of you know, she was the producer of a cable TV show called This I Believe, in which her friend Elizabeth Ruffner interviewed local leaders about the beliefs that informed their work. She was a strong environmentalist, aware of her impact on the planet she gave to save the whales, and was strongly opposed to waste in any form, and a vegetarian for over 50 years. She was generous with her time and resources. She was a great listener and a lively conversationalist. She formed deep and lasting friendships, including many people decades younger than she. Mementos from that time and from all the many Janers she was are in Davis Hall for you to take a look at, that show the breadth of who she was and the joy she had in being who she was. The very last stage of her life was intentional. She wanted to be home and she wanted to be with the people she loved. As she had created the life that she wanted, she also created the death that she wanted. Almost every day, however she was feeling, she got out of bed, got dressed, made her bed, and then at some time in the day welcomed a friend. Her long life, her 103 years on this earth, made it possible for her to not only know her grandchildren, but know her great grandchildren, and not just send them Christmas cards and birthday cards. She had a relationship with all of you. This is a beautiful gift that her age, that she gave her family. And at this time, we also must acknowledge the caregivers, the same 6 people who hovered around her, slept on the floor outside her room during the last days when she was dying, cared for her lovingly during those last 2 years of her life, and became her extended family. The Jainerisms recorded by them, and you will hear them later, give us a record of some of the amazing things that Jainer said during these years. These will be celebrated later. Renee Miller, who is the leader of these efforts, would be here if it were not for an event that she just couldn't miss. And during the past years, I believe that Jainer gave us a model about how to exit this life. As with making music central to her life, she knew how to prioritize within the limitations of her body, which being human was wearing down. As her energy waned, she narrowed her circle and she knew what energy she had to give to people. And now we are here celebrating Jainer and her legacy of music, children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and love. She did her best to balance her desires with the wants and needs of the people she loved. The pearly gates opened for you, Jainer, and all of us who loved her know that that is true. Amen, and may it be so. And now we have the pleasure to hear from her grandsons, hear their memories.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Jainer's youngest grandson. Thank you all for coming to celebrate my grandmother's remarkable 103 years of life. It's truly wonderful to see you all here, and I know we all share fond memories of her. I want to speak about my memories of my grandmother, my Gram, and I want to share with you who she was to me. Maybe through this sharing, we can reach some of those treasured memories we have of her. I have known for quite some time that my Gram would not be here forever. When I was 15, which would make her 78, I flew out to Arizona to visit. It was my first time flying out to visit her alone. She picked me up from Phoenix in her dusty 1986 Toyota Camry, and we headed north, back up to Prescott. As we putted along the highway, I hesitantly offered to drive since I only had my learner's permit. I was worried Gram would be anxious at my inexperience, but to my surprise, she was relieved at not having to drive anymore. I guess being chauffeured by an inexperienced 15-year-old beat driving north from Phoenix. It was my first realization of her growing limitations and finitude. I realized she wouldn't be around forever, so I began saving every postcard and letter. I made a decision to call and visit regularly, and took pictures to capture my memories. Later in life, I began to wonder why I was so compelled to create and hold on to these memories. What was it about her character? What was it about her way of talking with me? What was it about our relationship? What was it about Graham that I wanted to hold on to? What made me want to hang on to our correspondence and grow the experiences we shared? Why? What was so important and meaningful? After much reflection, I eventually realized what made her extraordinary to me: time and attention. She always made time for me, and when she did, she gave me her undivided attention. Her thoughtful presence and focused attention allowed for us to have deep and meaningful conversations. Maybe some of you, maybe more than some of you, were touched by these two qualities she so freely shared with the people she loved. She welcomed our conversations with sincere positivity and loving regard. She was by far the best listener I have ever known. The amount of hours she spent listening to my childhood troubles, which evolved into adolescent stupidity and then into adult problems, had to border on the tens of thousands. These countless conversations allowed me to work through life's innumerable challenges with someone who not only said she loved me, but acted in a loving manner with care, respect, and positive regard. My Graham embodied love. She embodied love. Her love was not some abstraction or convoluted idea or a word tossed in at the end of conversations. It was how she acted in life. She loved her son, my father, Peter, and his partner, Joe. She loved her three grandsons, Bach, Jaron, and me, and their partners, Julia and Erica. And I'm certain she would have loved you too, Tony. She loved her 6 great-grandchildren, Ava and Kira, Wyatt and Rhett, Olivia and Kai. And she loved her wonderful friends who brought such joy to her life. She loved people and worked to reduce the suffering in the world. She loved animals, and she loved this earth. Her love was the most impactful gift she could ever give, far beyond anything tangible. Her love will continue to radiate through the people she touched. This is what made her the incredible person we all loved in return. Thank you all for being here.
Hi there, Pat, thank you. Patty, thank you. This is to be here with everyone. The experiences I had growing up with my grandma, I know that she affected a lot of you in very similar ways. I didn't take the time to write down because I wanted to kind of speak from my heart. So growing up, I had the privilege of having my Graham next door is what we called her. She literally lived through one door and was always accessible. A sanctuary she created for us that had classical music playing and lovely incense and wonderful smells of lentil soup or light, I don't know, various incenses. And it was always a sanctuary, whether it was, you know, an injury or some sort of, you know, physical ailment. She always had something to comfort us, or to, you know, rub Swedish bitters on a bruise, or some sort of homeopathic aid for us. But beyond that, it was a support, a love, as Matt is saying, that I hold on to. I will always hold on to. It's something that she was very genuine and pure in her understanding of people and her care for people and her care for the world. And she took a lot of that burden on in terms of, you know, seeing the troubles of the world, but actually taking action and trying to do something to make it better. And I think reading the principles that she helped develop some of the meditations, I think it was called. It's kind of a deeper understanding of this world and the connection of everyone. But I got such like an intimate dose of that as a child, and feel so blessed for that. It's really something that I will carry for forever. The thing that's wonderful about this is that I have two young boys that you've seen pictures up here, that they have also gotten that sense and that feeling of sanctuary in her house. And they seem to calm down when they're there and delicately take her love and share their love for her. And it's something that I could have written something down for this, but I just wanted to speak to you about how lucky I feel to have this person affect me and to be able to affect my children, to affect my brothers, and all of you, I suppose. So I just, that love is something that when I look up there, there was this picture of her hand on my head. Even though she's gone, I will always have that. She will always make me feel warmth, and I will always have that sanctuary from inside of me. And I hoped at some point to share that, or continue to share that if I do, with my family, with my friends. So thank you all for being here. I do feel the love in this place. I know we'll miss her greatly, but she is living in a very loving spot inside of my soul. So thank you all.
Hello, I'm Locke, and I'm the oldest of the three boys, as Pop would always kind of refer to us. I can only imagine how full Graham's heart was when, having been a mother of a single child, all of a sudden her child blesses her with three boys, three amazing children, all very different. And, you know, I think I stand before you guys excited. I brought my wife because she's known Graham. We're coming on 30 years together and has been a major part of our lives and has been in Julia's life more than she hasn't been. And I think it's weird, you know, my daughters the other day asked me, they're like, Dad, I don't see you cry a lot. And I'm like, it's interesting how Graham infused me with just this like timeless happiness. And it's so deep. And I have sadness, but I only have sadness because maybe she's not here physically, but those memories are so rich and they just embody me every day. And there's wisdom that she passed on in nuanced ways that we realize it later in our lives. And we're like, that might be one of those Graham moments that she was trying to educate me, but I was too young to get it. And it, you know, I feel like the older I get, the more it permeates me and it permeates how I raise my children. Being able to kind of quiet the noise of the universe and definitely society. And everybody knows nowadays it's at volume 10 and it's hard to kind of keep that all out. But that sanctuary that Graham created, you know, I had some noise in my early years and I think she helped to kind of quiet that and give me that sense of resilience that, you know, like we're going to get through it. And even, you know, she rarely shared unless asked what she had gone through, but was always there to listen and help give some strategies on how to move forward. But I'd love to share the mic with my wife because we've had some amazing experiences and she has shared them as well. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Julia Eldridge, and like Locke said, we've been together for it'll be almost 30 years coming up shortly. When I first met Graham, I was 16 years old. My grandparents had already, either one of them had passed, and the other was still alive, but not doing well as far as her mind. And so Graham became, like Jaren and Matt both talked about, a sanctuary for not just the whole family, but for me as well. When Graham next door would be there, I would frequently go over and, we'd respectfully knock on the door and she would invite us in. And when she did that, it was always to have tea. A lot of you guys probably know about Grandma and tea. She had a particular ritual in which she used, and because she was a vegetarian, she had soy milk instead of regular milk. And she had honey in a special honey jar, and a particular method of how it brewed, how the tea would brew. And it was a time where during the brewing time was almost a settling of that sanctuary that she would bring to everybody who would come into her area. She was definitely the most amazing listener I've ever met, someone who brought great counsel. And at the same time, I know that there were times that we all had conversations in which she received and listened and took counsel from others as well. So she wasn't just there to listen and hear who you were and what you needed. She would also share and receive information back. And she was a very amazing woman. A couple of years ago, I was reading a book by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and in it, in the prelude to the book, Ruth Bader Ginsburg had talked about how friends of hers had come to her and said, somebody is going to be writing your story one day, and we would like to offer that somebody be us, and that we allow you to use your own words. What would you like to include in your story? And so I proceeded over the course of the next few months, recording her and asking her questions about her life and what she would want others to know about her and what she valued. She definitely stated that she would want everyone to know how much love there is in the world, and that to not give up that hope. It was also around the time that in our country, things were changing very rapidly. She's gonna hate me for this, for Trump being in office. And for the election that was coming up, I had shared with her some of my consternation over what would happen if he was reelected again. And she shared with me that she voted in every election from the time that she could, since she was very young, except for one. And that's what she would want others to do, to continue to ensure that her daughters and her granddaughters, great granddaughters, I should say, would understand the value in pushing forward and doing the things that were within your power to act. She did that a lot. I have a lot of stories, but I won't go on anymore. But I was really grateful to her, and still am, for everything that she shared with me. And I know that she just had a great deal of respect for everybody in Prescott that she touched, and that she felt just touched by you all as well.
Ride on
Hi everyone, my name is Kristen Mcdonald. I was a caretaker for Janer for 2.5 years. I was one of 6. The other caretakers were Renee, Sarah, Corey, Cameron, and Kennedy. We were there morning and evening to make her breakfast and her dinner, and we spent quite a bit of time with her during that time. Janer was just such a blessing and a sweetheart to me. I just really felt lucky to get to know her. As I'm sure all of you know, she was incredibly smart, very articulate, and funny. And the thing is, Janer, even after she had her stroke, she still maintained her humor and her intelligence, and she could still be very articulate, but sometimes she'd really grasp for words, and every once in a while something kind of funny would come out that she hadn't intended because it wasn't the word she was looking for. Over time, I decided to start writing some of these down because they made me laugh, and some of them just were, so quintessentially Janer that I wanted to remember her, and I thought writing them down would help me remember her. I titled this note in my phone, "Buddha is a paper plate," and the reason why was that one day I was telling her that I'd put a piece of paper in her office, and I said, "I put the Buddha on top of that paper, okay?" And she said very wisely, "Ah, yes, Buddha is a paper plate." And I laughed, and she said, "Why are you laughing?" And I said, "You said Buddha is a paper plate." And she said, "I meant Buddha is a paperweight," which of course I had guessed. But now if I say something wrong, or misunderstand something, I will sometimes think to myself, Buddha is a paper plate. So anyway, I hope you enjoy these as much as I enjoy them. These will definitely be something I treasure about, from Janer to me. So without further ado, Buddha is a paper plate. One day Janer was heading to the study and she told me, "I'm heading to the study to file some papers. It's good to be organized. It doesn't matter one bit in the grand scheme of things, but it might matter tomorrow." One day she told me, "If you woke up every day wondering how you can screw someone else over, you might as well not get out of bed." One day I'd made Janer pancakes for dinner, and she was sitting in front of the TV, and there was a commercial on with a very attractive male model without his shirt on, and it had her undivided attention. At some point, the commercial changed and it was something less interesting, and she turned to me and she goes, "How many man cakes did I have?" I had to laugh and tease her for that. One day she had a conversation with someone where she felt like she could have been more patient and more kind, and she was feeling bad about it. I was disappointed to hear this because I was really hoping I wouldn't be worrying about things like that at 101. But she reassured me there is always time to learn to be better with other people. But this day she told me, "I would rather do things in kindness and go with the flow in love than be a pain in the ass." One day I came in and I could see Janer was very anxious to tell me something before she forgot. And I said, "Hey, Janer, what's going on?" And she said, "If you look at the window by the front door, you'll see a little black stuff. It's kind of down by the floor. If you look closely, you'll see I couldn't tell what she'd said. So I leaned closer and I said, "It's a what?" And she said, "It's a wizard." I went, "A wizard? Oh my gosh." And she looks at me and she goes, "A lizard. It's a lizard." And I laughed and I said, "Well, thank goodness, because I'm pretty sure I can shoo out a lizard. If it was a wizard, I'd have to make a few phone calls." She said, "You're teasing me." And I said, "Yes, I am, Janer." Janer has had an ant problem on and off. I think it's an issue in the neighborhood. I live down the road and I've had an ant problem too from time to time. One of the other caregivers, Sarah, had noticed that they seemed to be infesting one particular plant she had, so Sarah had taken it outside. I came in and I told Janer, I brought that plant in that Sarah took outside so it won't freeze. Janer said, oh, good. Interestingly, Sarah doesn't even like killing ants. I kind of hate them, though. I was surprised. She almost never describes things as hating them, except carrots. But I said, well, I don't mind shooing out a spider, but I don't have much sympathy for indoor ants. Janer said, somehow spiders seem to have more class. I think that's true. As I'm sure all of you know, Janer is hard of hearing, and sometimes some of our conversations would go a little wrong because of that. I'd brought her a piece of cake, and I knew everything in her fridge. So when this happened, I knew what she was talking about was the piece of cake I'd brought. Janer said, there's a tub in the fridge with moldy cheese in it. Janer, it's cake. I don't know why someone would bring me moldy cheese and put it in my fridge. It's cake. I really don't like moldy cheese. Janer, it's cake. I opened up the Tupperware, opened it, and tilted it toward her so she could see what it was I was yelling about. Oh my gosh, Janer says, it's cake. It looks really good. She ate all of it that night. One day I came in. How do you like my new head? Janer said, pointing at her new haircut. It was a new haircut. Best one yet. Janer was looking at her Christmas decorations and she told me, I like that guy with the nose, but I don't like that Santa. Yeah, he does kind of have a look about him. Janer said, he looks like he's being lewd. Yeah, he sure does. One day I came over and I saw that Janer didn't have her shoes on. So I said, Janer, where are your shoes? Are you letting your feet air out? She said, I took my shoes off so I could change their undergarments. Later on, the last couple of weeks before Janer passed away, our conversations changed a little bit. And, you know, you can kind of feel that. But I included these because I kind of liked them. One evening I came in and she had her eyes closed and she was laying in her bed. And if she'd had her eyes open, she'd be looking at this bright blue sky with some beautiful clouds in it. And I came up to her and I said, hi, Janer, it's Kristen. How are you? And she still had her eyes closed and she kind of just looked very peaceful. And she said, I'm going to be part of the sky soon. I said, yeah. She said, yeah, I've just been thinking about that. And I kind of liked it. One night I came in and I told her that I came over and that I'd be there for the night. And she said, oh, okay. She said, who are all these people? And I kind of looked around and I said, I don't know. No one's here that I can see, but your eyes are closed. And she smiled with her eyes still closed. And I said, do you recognize anyone? And she said, no, they're just people off the streets. I thought it was interesting because, you know, a lot of people might be alarmed if they thought that there was a group of strangers in their house, but Janer didn't frequently approach things with fear that I noticed. And maybe that was later in her life. But I just thought it was kind of nice. You know, she always sort of approached people and things with curiosity, not so much fear. But I hope you enjoyed these. I enjoyed writing them down. I enjoyed reading them. So I hope you liked them. Thanks. Bye.
I'm an old friend of Janer's. I was in the Women's Song Chorus, and it was so wonderful to hear you sing today. What a treat. I spent at least 20 years having Sunday tea with Janer. And on one of her birthdays, I wrote a poem about it and gave it to her. And the family contacted me recently and said they found the poem among her papers. And would I read it? And I'm so pleased to do that. Here it is, the short poem. Happy birthday to Janer, or a legend in her own time, or tea hostess extraordinaire. She's short, she's funny. Pretension hath no plinth, she says. And we laugh, having no idea what that means. She knows about who and whom and semicolons. She knows a lot of stuff about language and music and capitalism and how to stay upright in a broken world. Best of all, she knows me, how much I love her reassurances, her wealth of compliments, her listening and questions about my worries, my children, my writing. Like a benign witch, she knows magic words. You can do it. You have a good ear. You're funny. You deserve to enjoy your life. Have another cup of tea.
Thank you all for being here. I'm Peter. I don't know if everybody doesn't know that, but I'm her son, Janer's son. And yes, I'm grateful. Every one of you is experiencing the same thing I am right now, which is an incredible community, people that have come together because of my mother. The music is excellent. Everybody's in pitch. People listen to each other while they're singing. Our two wonderful musicians here. That's talk about synchronicity. Talk about being in sync. It's been an interesting life, and I think that from, as Patty so carefully and thoroughly mentioned about what I come from, I have to say I am incredibly grateful for being here today, because this is indeed a life of learning. And yeah, it was a little tough start, but this is what happens to, say, cubs that kick out their, bears that kick out their cubs, birds that just throw their fledglings off and they start to fly. It's kind of what happened. And then to wind up here in a room full of loving people, with a loving wife who has done practically everything for this service. And to express gratitude for everybody who's helped would be impossible. But, you know, there's people who did the food. Thank you, Charlotte. Everybody's brought things, brought goodies, but just that you've brought yourselves. I am honored. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that Granite Peak is here. Came into this setting and actually pretty soon after she got here in 1994. And this is what I looked for. And I had the permission to be enthusiastic about it, to share this with people, to engage deeply, also listening to this group, which one cannot say enough about. And thank goodness, thank you, Amy, but thank you, every one of you, for being who you are and singing as wonderfully as you sing. Yes, I was totally dissolved. So, don't have much more to say, except that there's wonderful food collected out in Davis Hall. And we'll have a time for the people, if they want to stay here, share memories if you'd like to, or go in and chow down. And either one, I think we'll have the slideshow over there, wherever Heather is. And so, two places to get the same thing. And again, I would be interested in anybody who wishes to just have some words. And again, I'm grateful. I'm thankful to every one of you. You are dear friends. You exhibit such love. It's enough. I love you all.
Today, as we close this service, we who have spoken and played music are going to pass that work of remembering and singing into your hands. For Janer's theology, I believe that this is how we keep her with us, by remembering her love, by fixing a cup of tea in her particular way, not just any way, and imagining how she might solve a dicey problem that comes up in our lives, how she might soothe loneliness. We remember her when we take the trouble to do what we love, be with the people we love, reach for our favorite music, or bravely listen to music we might not like the first time around. We remember her when we live with intention, when we do what we love and we spend time with those we love, which she so beautifully did. May her life inspire all of us to live more fully. Amen. And may it be so. Amen. And we close with one of her favorite songs by her favorite singers, Woman's Song. Thank you. Thank you. Our chalice extinguisher is Olivia Eldridge and her cousin Kira. And now we extinguish our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of commitment, or the joy and love that Janer's life has brought to ours. Thank you. Thank you. And now we have a bit of proof that Janer is still with us.
That's all right. It's okay. Okay, it's okay to do that. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. Round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Are we gonna do too many?
If there are any more sightings, Peter wants you to contact him directly. In Davis Hall, the family has prepared many ways to express your memories to Janer. There's a place for writing. There's a place for nibbling on delicious tidbits, thanks to Charlotte and her crew. And after the postlude, if you have memories, this microphone will stay here for you. And now go in peace and let us celebrate her life. Let us continue to celebrate.